Hola, boa tarde from Portugal. Gary, how are you? It's been a while, hasn't it? We've had our summer break.
We have, and hey up me duck, as we say from Derbyshire.
Hey up me ducky. Hola, boa tarde from here in Portugal, where it's a bit cooler. Yeah, not too bad. It's been a bit wild here in Portugal with the fires and so on. But I'm near the coast, thankfully, and doing all we can to help out those who've been affected in central and northern Portugal, where it's been worse. But yeah, it's been a crazy month in all sorts of ways, and we've got quite a high temperature generally in the world, haven't we? So it's nice to be here having a little mindful look at what's going on in the world with a fabulous guest today who may contribute to the calm this afternoon and community, a sense of community rather than a sense of conflict.
I like the way you put that. That's where we're going to be going. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So before we introduce JL Friday, Jess, this evening, I wanted to announce our first Positive Echo award winners.
Excellent. Do you know what? I can do a drum roll.
Yeah.
If you want. Yes.
Go for it.
All right. Okay. So let me just cue drum roll.
So our winners, the first recipients are Priya and Vikas Narula. And Vikas was one of our guests earlier this year. And we decided to give them the first ever certificate prize, the Positive Echo Medal. And it's for their project called Neighborhood Forest. And they are well into giving every child in the USA a tree to plant on Earth Day.
Yeah.
At no cost to the kid, of course. And they're now working in other countries around the world. I think it's a wonderful project. And it's, to get more idea about it, please check out the episode with Vikas Narula. So that's it.
Yeah. Well, may I say before we move on, I love this so much that I've instigated a version of it with Vikas's support and help here in Portugal, and it's particularly prescient given the wildfire situation with a massive loss, hundreds of thousands of hectares of wildfire devastation. And a lot of that is to do with non-native species. So if we can get kids interested in planting native species here in Portugal, that would be so awesome. So I'm really glad to have his blessing and delighted to be making this award to them both and the wonderful Neighborhood Forest Project.
Yep, there we go. So it won't be like every month or every week. We're going to look very specifically for people and the projects they have. They don't all have to be national, international. They can be very, very small things. Just people who make a positive difference to their community.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And a positive echo that they'll leave behind when they're gone. Let's not keep JL Friday waiting any longer. Let's bring her onto the screen. And let me go to the other part of the sound effects board and give her a massive round of applause. Hola, boa tarde, as we say here in Portugal. How are you doing, JL?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you. How are y'all?
We're pretty good. We're pretty good.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a good week.
Nice to be back from our holiday and to be having inspiring positive echo conversations, which I'm sure we'll have with you today. Where are you in the world? Before Gary gives you a proper introduction, let's just connect you on the map. We are connectioning. Let's do that geographically, shall we?
Yeah, I'm currently visiting Columbus, Ohio. Ohio being one of the biggest places for community wealth building in the world.
Is that right?
So
yeah, I have learned this from Jess. Which brings me to a very brief introduction of how we are in the room together. And then Jess will tell you more about who she is, what drives her, where her passions come from, and we'll take the conversation from there. So just as with several others of our guests previously, I discovered Jess on Substack and her really detailed, really inspiring website. And this idea of connectioning really got under my skin because I'm I love the idea of how is it we narrow gaps between people and organizations, not so they see the world exactly the same, but they're prepared to put away their differences for a common good. And either at the personal level, or why not a global level? And Jess's thinking is global, and how to get that really making a sea change to the way we live. So the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so JL Friday, or Jess, or you, and for everybody, I go by Friday too. And so how did I arrive at connection is all that's missing? 3 years ago, wild story, I saw a way to democratize economies worldwide, a way to rewire everything to create an economy that supports all life. Systems that connect us rather than what they're doing now is disconnecting us and their extractive based systems. So I saw this because I was in the on-demand manufacturing industry. I'm autistic, I'm a systems thinker. I saw the trends and I saw the way that we could create systems to do this, but I looked around and I couldn't find anyone already doing this. And the idea of it is really simple. The biggest part of it is just social enterprise and co-ops, which have been around forever. We're not reinventing the wheel here. But I looked around for people already doing it, and I couldn't find anyone. I found a few organizations that did a bit of education around it, but nobody actually implementing the solutions. And so I just knew how world-changing and transformative this could be in a very short order, a very short time frame to turn everything around. So I maxed out all my credit cards. I put all my cash into a startup to conquer the world by myself. Ironically, I tried to build community wealth pretty much on my own.
Yeah.
That is how entrenched this disconnected mindset is in humanity.
Mm-hmm.
This is all so ingrained in us, right? Mm-hmm. And the happy news is, because of the connections I had been making for years, I had people along the way, that even strangers on the internet who believed in my mission, who have kept a roof over my head, kept me traveling place to place to place. I've changed locations over 40 times to keep some sort of roof over my head through this process. But also through this process, I learned a couple of things. One, the skill set of connecting to other people, because it is a skill that we have to remember and relearn. And number two, that all these movements and out there, these stones that have been cast into the water, these seeds that have been planted to make these ripples, they're all around us. I found hundreds of movements already doing it. And I noticed that the only thing that was missing was connection and coordination between these. And so it took me a couple of years to figure that out. And so now we're organizing this media company and this networking initiative that works like the Me Too movement in order to connect all these pieces. And I am a realistic optimist. Mm-hmm. There's data behind all we are doing, and what myself and some other people in the movement see now, being on this side of it, because most of the world doesn't know or see it, is that we will be able to move from this extractive economy to an economy that supports all life within the next year or two. And Cool. It all comes down, it all comes down to people's beliefs and being able to see and to connect to this emergent new world that is growing. So that's the story in a nutshell. And my brain is full of so many things, because it really comes down to all these small little things that add up and fractal out.
Yeah.
These little things, you wouldn't think it. You wouldn't think your ordinary actions matter, but they actually really do, because every day you vote with your money, your time, and your relationships for the world you believe is possible.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind me.
Please, or I'll go all day.
We're just like souls. Info dumper, welcome to another info dumper. And Carl just loves sitting on the sidelines and waiting to put these absolutely brilliant questions in. But anyway, the thing that struck me first is, when should we begin to educate on connectioning? Is this the thing that should be in schools? Should it be taught, or is it something that you learn by example?
So, like, yeah, we'd love for it to be in schools. There are several people within the movement working on either getting this into the current education system or redoing the current education system entirely. You may have heard of the influencer Simon Squibb. He's one of the big ones. He wants to change the education system. And so that's one way, but honestly, everyone is a teacher, everyone is a student. And so once the world is opened up to this well-being economy, community wealth space, you sort of figure it out as you go, just by connecting in community. I mean, if you're talking about educating young people, they're getting education on YouTube and TikTok.
Yeah, right.
And right, I homeschooled my kid. Lots of people are going towards homeschooling, and homeschooling is full of neurodivergent and community wealth-minded people. And so it just depends on your area, where you are, what you want to do. These principles are just emerging everywhere.
And the second thing was, you just mentioned it again, this concept of community wealth. Can you tell us a bit more about how you define that, and maybe an example?
So where we want to get to is having well-being economies. These are economies that support all life, better modes of learning, of being together in community, kind of back to the village, but with the technology that we have now. And so how we get there to well-being economies is through community wealth. Now, I wanted to make a distinction in honor of Neil McEnroy and the Democracy Collaborative, who have done this amazing work in Cleveland, Ohio, and Preston in the UK. They have instituted they have put into play and implemented what is called community wealth building. This is its distinct own thing, that it takes a local economy and it creates what are called anchor institutions. And it gives the community ownership over those things. And we have seen incredible results in terms of what that does for those communities and those neighborhoods in terms of the wealth of the community. That's community wealth building. Democracy Collaborative has a guide on how to do that, how to implement that in your city. There's also Michael Muyo has written a book called Regenerative Economic Zones. This is a similar thing, and they are working in the US on connecting the economy between Greenville, South Carolina, and Asheville, North Carolina. So that's community wealth building. That is taking these regenerative businesses and communities and sort of connecting and coordinating them together so they're working towards one thing. Community wealth in general is an umbrella term for anything that brings wealth back into the community. Because right now,
it's okay, you're still with us. still there.
Am I still with you?
Yeah,
Great.
you're still with us. Yeah.
So as a product of the extractive systems, typically in communities, we are getting our basic needs met. What we used to get from each other in little communities from local resources, we are purchasing that, and then all the money is flowing out of the community to shareholders or who knows where. It's people who aren't accountable and don't care about your community. So community wealth is anything that brings that back into community, and that can be as simple as helping your neighbor, helping a friend. Whereas if they were going to call an Uber, giving them a ride because you're going that way. And to be able to do those things, you have to start connecting and building the community and capacity to do that with one another. So that community wealth in a nutshell.
Very good.
You got something you wanted to say, Carl, or ask?
Yeah, I want to ask one of those brilliant questions. No pressure. I sit on the sidelines and ask incredible questions. Hopefully this is one of them, Gary and JL here. I want to just get clear myself on what this is, because I think Gary's already sold from what he knows. I tend to sit in the podcast and hear the idea for the first time and invariably get excited and inspired by it. So that's already happened to me sort of energetically, but I need to find out sort of rationally more what it is. So my understanding is that it's a concept and a methodology. Okay, so the concept is, and I'm sold on this, the idea of a well-being economy and what you've said so far. I've been a long time supporter of that. It's just kind of obvious to some people, isn't it, that that's how human beings might work with each other. But obviously we're born into something else which kind of distracts us from that. And then the kind of needs of the day, rendering unto Caesar, all those other imperatives come in and kind of undermine that, what is completely natural to human beings. And it sounds like you have a methodology that could have this happen quite rapidly, exponentially among people, among human beings. And arguably that does need to happen, doesn't it? We've got other clocks running that are not working in our best interests. This sounds like a clock that is running in completely in our interest. It's about us and how we relate and connect to each other. And it's a win-win-win-win-win, because that's as I understand it, the very definition of a well-being economy. So could you unpack those two things a little bit more for the benefit of our viewers and listeners? I'd love to know more about the well-being economy, because it's just it's a given to me, but I want to know more about how that's going to work, and then after that, how that's rolled out, if you like, in this year-long, couple of year time scale that you're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's not, that couple of years isn't that like everything's going to be fixed in that time frame.
No,
everybody,
okay. Yes,
it's going to take just a little bit.
I get it.
Long.
Stretching goals.
We'll give you a bit more longer to fix everything.
Okay. You're right, but everybody will know about this in the next 2 years, and it's that win-win-win, no-brainer for humanity.
Yes.
What if we based our economies on things that actually matter instead of just GDP?
There's a thing. Yes.
That's it's that simple. And so I have done quite a bit of study up on systems theory.
Go on.
Because I could sort of see how the systems work together. And then I came across Donella Meadows' Leverage Points and Systems. And she wrote her book. She's a pioneer in this. And if you look at our human networks, they're just systems. A rule of these systems is if you change the purpose of a system, you completely change the behavior of a system.
Yes.
Right? So if your system's purpose is to just grow profit, that is what it will do. Every single component or person in that system will be subservient to that. Yep. But as we know, there is several different people have frameworks on the types of wealth. And most of the types of the wealth in the world, if you think about it, are not money or assets. They're human capital. They're human relationships. They're your skill set, your personal growth, your relationships, your community. This is why we see, millionaires go broke, but then all of a sudden they've got another company down the road. It's because they had the other types of wealth, even if they ran out of money. They say that you don't go homeless when you run out of money. You go homeless when you run out of people. And I have found that to be true. That is the difference.
Yeah.
It is really, there's a whole invisible economy of us caring for each other that isn't even part of the money system, that happens, that upholds the money system. It's just invisible because we don't track it and measure it. And these well-being indicators, people ask me a lot, well, how do you define well-being? Well, you know, that might look a little bit different for every community. But the fact that you are starting to look outside GDP for one, but number two, you are looking at what's best for everyone, means that you're going to start to shift things in that direction. And that's going to, when we start reframing how we look at this, that's going to start the shift. Because I'll give you an example. Drivers Cooperative Colorado versus Uber and Lyft. So we know Uber and Lyft, the gig economy has actually, it's still fairly new. But we know that through the gig economy, they start out, or any of these corporations and everything, they start out with huge capital investments so that they can price things really, really low for people, right? And so that they can bring people in, because people are concerned about saving money. And then they make things really, really easy for people. And then they refine that over time so that once you start using that system, it's hard to break free from. And there are several human psychological principles that go into that. But that's you then voting for the extractive system, because your community doesn't own that. The drivers, they can tell you they're not getting paid nearly enough, definitely not as much as they were a few years ago. And now they're kind of stuck in the system because it's taken over everything, and they have no power other than to maybe unionize, right? Okay, so in comes Drivers Cooperative Colorado. Denver is a real hotspot too for community wealth. I haven't even begun to dive in with the investigation there of the community-owned structures, but this has been done in a couple of other places in America. And you'll see this, you'll see some projects maybe less successful, some get big and fail, but the Rocky Mountain Employee Ownership Center incubated them, and they want this to be part of a federated movement. Drivers Cooperative Colorado is community owned. Like 80% of the fare goes to the drivers, 20% to the platform to take care of overhead costs. Now, I talk about this for every rideshare I get in. I ask them, I've driven myself for the gig economy and done a little investigation. And typically they're paying like 50%. So drivers are getting paid more. Riders actually typically are paying less in this cooperative, and the profits go back to the community, and people are getting this pretty much the same service. So why, like, there's, as long as we are scaling this, and I tell people, like, they started with like $500,000 of investment. And this sounds like so much to the average person, but in the business world, I know even myself in business partnerships, $50K a month was like nothing to bring. That was a very small business. And we have crowdfunded on TikTok for single people for almost $1 million for them. So we could actually, with minimal public investment or crowdfunding and the right teams, we could have one of these in every major city in the world federated together, and then people can get the same service, pay the same price or less, and give money back to that community that they're visiting or that they're a part of. I just don't see them opting to give their money to shareholders who aren't directly involved in that community when they're given the option.
And this is one great example, isn't it? Basically, this is, the proposal isn't this in itself. This is just one great reflection example of the idea you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have there are thousands. I mean,
I'm
thousands
sure
of things to dip your toe in here.
Yes.
It's a kind of bigger example of a local farmers market where people, and we have one in my village every month, and there's somebody who sells clothes that have come from major fashion houses, but the end of season. So rather than going to landfill, they take them, sell them, keep some of the profit themselves for their, living, and then they reinvest it in other projects. That's just one example of one stall. There's a stall that sells meat, which is done on the same basis. Every stall holder pays a fee that goes to the virtual village organization that looks after the village hall and distributes food to the needy. So there are lots and lots of tiny versions of it. And I was asking the people who run this virtual village that organize the farmers market, what's the biggest resistance? And they said, the big retailers. They're trying to undermine us all the time. So they have a Facebook page and they get these weird comments, and they're obviously from profit-making organizations. And that's the bit that I think anybody that's setting up a scalable version of one of these community well-being organizations need to think is, how do we protect us from the people whose very wealth you are going to strip away? Because they'll do everything they possibly can to undermine it. So you have to be savvy as well as mean well.
Can I add something to that as well, Gary? Is that all right? Can I add something to Gary's point there and make it into a bigger question, perhaps? Because I'm sure that's true, and there's our internalized version of that. Because you mentioned how there was a sort of psychological part of this, I think, JL, earlier on. And we have internalized this, haven't we? And what's really interesting to me about this in terms of scalability and adoption of the really sensible, obvious idea you're talking about, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, I have a hunger and thirst for this myself and have had for many decades. I see what you're talking about. And I think lots of people do and can definitely feel it and see the benefit of it. And then we have our own, as well as the outer demons that Gary's talking about, perhaps, the big retailers or whatever, and the people who want to keep making profits. We have our own internalized version of that, don't we? It's like, we know, well, how do we make this work? We've all got to go out to work. We've got to do X, Y, and Z, which is all part of us subscribing to the status quo, isn't it? And that's what seems to be important in this. A very important part of this conversation is how you make the transition, if you like, from being a part of like a serf in the technological feudalism as it's also described, right? Yanis Varoufakis, I think he articulates this really well. That thing you talk about where we've become part of the profit-making machine for people outside of our community has been done to such an, you've got to admire it in a way. It's not good for us, but like, wow, they did a good job with that, and the trend seems to be going in that. The worst case scenarios of that are hideous, aren't they? And it's like it's sort of globalization, really, isn't it? In a way, what you're talking about, I think, is unglobalization, if you like, and bringing the things back to people and community. How do we deal with that bit that Gary's talking about? The external profit-making machinery, the great big beast of profit. But how we've internalized that ourselves, and we can't make that switch almost, can we? Or it's difficult for us. Yeah,
we can.
Okay. Yes. How? Go on.
How? This is okay. So look, I've been a pretty poor person most of my life, and what I find is that people, we are in classes, right? We're in our groups, and that's our culture, and that's what we know. And so that the culture that was handed down to me is that rich people are bad. They won't help you. They're out to get you. They're the villain. They're the villain in our story. They're why we're poor. And I never place the blame on people, because that's not helpful to begin with.
Yeah.
But also, I've seen it genuinely is a systemic problem. And
Yes.
if you, wealthy people are just as much a product of the system
Yes.
as you are. Now, that's not
Yes.
to say they're not responsible, but they are largely unaware and completely out of touch. And I really got an education in this, because I've met Simon Squibb now a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a $500 million, right? Because he had the experience of being homeless at 15, he had that experience. He's never lived completely inside the wealthy person bubble. He had lived experience of homelessness. So when he sold off his company and he had all this money and he was going to retire, his first thought was to break people free from the system that he got free from.
Mm.
Okay. So what he is doing right now is going around, and he got famous by going on TikTok and asking people, what's your dream? Inspiring them with a vision, right? Instead of, which he was going to go into politics, didn't do that, converted. He made the right choice, inspiring people. What's your dream? Yeah. Giving them a little money to break free from the system through entrepreneurship, through creating social enterprise, right? And now he's going around and he's doing partnerships with, Richard Branson, all these famous and billionaire people, and getting them to give all their knowledge and all these things away for free.
Brilliant.
For people who couldn't have afforded it before, to help break them free. And I spoke to him in January and I said, do you understand the systems theory behind what you're doing? And he said, I'm just going on intuition, because it really is. His system is a community wealth building system, and he didn't know it. He was just going on intuition.
Yeah.
And from the wealthy people that I've met, they're just not aware. I mean, how many actually had a homeless experience where they have that lived experience, that connection to this other group of people, where their pain is my pain is your pain. And I've noticed that with people who have never experienced that amount of wealth, they're also out of touch with what wealth is like, where you live in a bubble and you never even have to think about the things that poor people think on a daily basis. And so there's I like to say, history wasn't done intentionally. Everybody had these competing bubbles and motivations, right? And it just created this monster.
Yes.
But it is a monster that can be defeated together, because there are wealthy impact investors. There are rich people that want to help, but just don't know how, maybe. Or they...
Warren Buffett.
There's help everywhere.
Yeah, Warren Buffett today has just given away $6 billion.
Yes.
The thing is, I'm uneasy about that, in that it's a great thing, and other billionaires are doing it, and ex-wives of billionaires are doing it in large scale. But why did they need to get? Why did they need to get that rich in the first place? So I'm going to just leave that hang in there. What I was really thinking about as you've been speaking is, and Carl, it relates to your question about the internal things. First, the average person doesn't believe it's possible. You can't make big organizations as a not-for-profit. And then there's this other thing I call the inconvenience of caring. The energy required to get your butt out of the seat. And for different people, that it's more energy that's required. And the bigger the prospect, that the more energy you've got to put in to get over the hump, as it were. The first thing about it can't be done, well, you've already shown that it can. And I'm terrible at names, so forgive me, and I don't know whether they're still in business, but there was this gigantic tomato processing company in California. We have American
benefit of for the benefit of Americans who didn't know what on earth Gary was talking about there.
I'll slip into Derbyshire dialect in a minute.
Yeah, go on, Vidal.
They were, maybe still are, the world's biggest producer of products from tomatoes. And yet it's a completely horizontal management system. Nobody outvotes anybody else, and no profit. There's no shareholders. So the people are paid a really good salary, but they're paid depending upon their level of responsibility. So the ones that take on the most responsibility get the biggest salaries, and so on. And I've presented this company, and it might come to mind in a minute, and people have gone, that can't be true. So I show them the stock market and say, this is the value of a company that is profitable and taking profit. This is the value of this company that doesn't have shareholders, and it's 5 times as big. So it does work. So this is an example of a well-being economy on massive scale. So that removes the first thing.
Morningstar, I think, is the name of the company.
That's the one, Morningstar. Yeah. The second thing is, how do we reduce the inconvenience of caring? It's done on a small scale. So to join something needs to be really, really easy to begin with. So we have a local group who pick litter on a Saturday morning. Costs nothing to join. You don't have to be special. You just have to turn up, put a high-vis jacket on, a litter picker, and a garbage bag. See, a bit more American.
Yeah, nice translation.
You could say, well, isn't that what we pay our local council for? But they are supposed to clean the streets. But we're not prepared to pay the council enough money to be able to fund that system. So local people have taken it upon themselves. Now you could say, oh, that's interesting. Maybe that could be an example of a small entrepreneurial organization where local residents pay them a fixed, reasonable fee, and they pay people to go and pick the litter.
And also, JL, is this what connectioning is? Because that is the name of this episode, and I don't think we've dealt specifically yet with what connectioning is. So we've got the idea. Yeah, in a way, we've got the idea, the concept of the well-being economies. It makes sense, and I think a lot of people who are on this sort of wavelength and might see this can get that. Is connectioning the methodology?
Yes. So the really exciting thing about all these big projects is that, as Matt Golding of Antidote says, almost all of them started with 3 people, a problem to solve, sitting around over a brew and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Just connecting and figuring it out together. Just 3 motivated people. And I think there's a couple of things I think about, like what is preventing more of that? Well, people's time, energy is sort of caught up in the extractive systems, right? But then I think over 3,000 people a day try to start a business in the UK alone. Just in the UK, that's like around 1 million people a year. Yep. So there is this on a I think on a subconscious level, they know that a job at a traditional company, you are a cog in the wheel. And so you are not free. And so business is a way to get financial freedom. I don't think they realize that business, which I just think of as a finely tuned art of human self-organization, I don't think that they realize that that is also contains your personal growth, your community. If you start something, if you spawn something with some friends, your personal growth, your community, so many other benefits you didn't even know you were missing. That right now, if you're sitting on the sofa in your spare time, you're not getting from a television show or YouTube, probably.
Yeah, well.
So, but it's really not. Like, we don't have to convince anyone. Like I said, there's already the momentum there with entrepreneurs, and then I'm seeing really now in America, people who are really getting strained by the system, and their first instinct is to lash back out. That's just a normal human thing, is to lash back out, strikes, protests, all this stuff that is, it's disconnection. whenever you bring that kind of energy into it. And so they simply don't know this exists. But I believe all this sort of negative energy, if they directed it into this connection energy, that we would, so they'd start those, you know, it's the law of diffusion of an innovation, the bell curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's only going to be a small percentage of people who are they start the thing, they get it going, and they're going to stick through, no matter if it takes a month or a year. I have a friend at Help Bank, Chris. He started this thing, We Power On, for other men, and they just go on a walk like every Sunday, and they talk and they have a brew at the end, and this is for them to connect. He told me he showed up for like 11 weeks straight before anybody else started showing up.
Yeah.
And now it's this big thing. He's had a documentary made about him. He's helped so many people. They've helped each other, which is the really beautiful thing. But Chris is within that 1 to 2% that are going to keep showing up until it takes off, or it fails and then they try another thing.
Yes. Yeah.
But the thing is, once these early adopters start pouring their energy there, then the big thing, you start to hit the people who are the early majority. They're like, hey, what's this thing going on? I got to find out what this is. I'm going to go get involved. So we don't have to worry about people who aren't ready to take action now. When we tell these stories, that connects and resonates with the people who are going to start things, or who are early majority that are going to be interested enough to go do a little digging and find something that's already going on.
Mm-hmm. So is there a more specific methodology in terms of connectioning? Sorry, Gary.
All right.
You know, our last guest, Carl, another Carl, was talking about undividing, and there was quite a specific process to that, which was incredible. And in a way, you know, resonances of other methodologies that are there to bring people together, and he's kind of reinvented it and refashioned it in a really attractive, concise and clear way. And I want to, as well as, you know, neighborhood forests, I want to start that in Portugal now, because Gary's introduced me to Vicas and his wife over there. And I want to have a slot on the show of Undividing, where we can have a conversation with somebody and no one gets cancelled. We talk it out, and you know, the potential of it is incredible. How is connectioning manifested? Because you also, another part of this, before we run out of time, you're a storyteller as well, aren't you?
Oh Lord.
Yes. And this is another part of it. How is this brought together? So we've got the well-being economy, no brainer as far as I'm concerned. We've got a kind of Stockholm syndrome thing that we're getting over, haven't we? It's like, yes, but we all need to make a living. And you know, to answer that earlier question of yours that was put to you, you know, what is well-being? It's basically the thing that we all want. It's why you're going out to work. Because the end game is to look after yourself, provide shelter, such that when you've dealt with all those, you know, problems of the day, you have space to be with the people you love and to have peace and calm yourself. That's the well-being we're talking about, isn't it? And so, how is storytelling, connectioning coming together to have this a sort of obvious thing for people to engage with? Because I think people need that.
They absolutely do. And the thing about is connectioning is to act as a central hub, because there are so many frameworks like Carl's out there. But our point is these projects started with just a few people connecting and figuring it out together. And we also have all these resources and frameworks we can direct you to. Find one you like, because there are so many different ways. Adapt it to your community, because your community is different and going to have different needs. The important thing is you connect and then experiment and try things. And so it acts as a central hub to point people out and give them just that first action. I put a video out on TikTok not too long ago. I said, hey, that neighbor, that friend that you've been thinking about, that thing you've been thinking about doing, getting started, go ahead and text them. Give them a call. And a woman messaged me, and that simple post got her to reach out to a friend to start something in their community, and that's ongoing and can evolve from there. But people are just, they're stepping it, if they're on the edge and they want to do something but don't know where to start, connectioning is about taking that first step.
So,
and
you seeing
the invitation is to people to become connectioners. So they're undividers in Carl's world, and they're connectioners in your world, in the way that you describe, and urge people to do on TikTok. And there's the TikTok address. Okay, sorry, Gary, go on.
I was going to say, at its most fundamental, what we're trying to do is get people to fall in love with the concept of connectioning. It has to be a real gut level, emotional, I can fall in love with this. And in the telling of your stories, it's the benefits that people will want to go, well, what's in it for me? We're quite selfish species, really. But the benefits are that dopamine hit you get when you're rewarded for your own core values coming to life. So
there's nothing more rewarding.
There's nothing. Every survey of every job satisfaction has said money is not the thing that gives you satisfaction. It's self-worth. It's connecting with people. It's those things that are based on love and trust and honesty and family and friends. And if you can link somebody's joining something to start with, then maybe starting something with that massive dopamine reward you get from those human connections, the falling in love with the idea of a well-being economy, it suddenly stops being just an intellectual thing. It becomes a really gut-driven thing and heart-driven. And that's really why I wanted you on the podcast.
I'm so glad.
We probably should have addressed the storytelling angle first, because I mean, that's how we connect. All humans are storytellers.
We are.
Yes.
And what we found with the Wellbeing Economy Alliance did a study on this, and they found above these words, well-being economy, community wealth, it was the definition that really got to people, an economy that supports all life. I mean, most humans agree on the top, like 85, 90% of values. So we find that point of agreement of connection. And then even above that is telling these stories. Stories don't have labels. You see another human, you doing something, you can see yourself in that. You can imagine that future for yourself. When people buy things from the current system, they're buying some sort of transformation or change for themselves. You're right, we're selfish. But in a way that they're buying their own well-being, their future well-being with that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I once interviewed a...
I can see an event coming in down the line in the future with Carl with the concepts of undividing, you with connectioning, and Vikas and Priya Narula, who have put this thing into effect. Wouldn't that be just an amazing thing to be part of and people to come to?
And the obvious thing in a conference of that kind or gathering is to tell the stories of how these things happen, right? We are absolutely storytellers and story lovers. And I remember asking him, I interviewed a storyteller once, and I said, what is it, what's the compelling thing about humans and storytelling? He said, people want to know what happens next. And I thought that, yes, he's nailed it with that. And the story, you began to tell a story in a way of the, three people trying to solve a problem. It is a love. We want to know what happens next. And because as soon as you said that, JL, I remembered here interviewing a company, the head guy of a company, the founder, if you like, who had a late night conversation with two of his pals. So there's the three people on the sofa, and they were partaking of a particular substance from which they thought they could make shoes. Hemp shoes. It's a fantastic hemp shoe company in Portugal. What's it called? Kicks, some 800 kicks or 8,000 kicks. And it's about a story. It's about a story, and the story grows because his grandma is a textile designer maker. So she's now part of the company, and they make these fantastic, beautiful, sustainable vegan shoes out of hemp. And the thing these three guys were coming up with was, can we make shoes you could eat? And that's the sort of silly idea you have at 2 a.m. in someone's garage on a sofa. However, or smoke, I think it was. But no, it refined into in the light of day, in the clear light of day and a clear head, it turned into this incredible story of a company of 8,000 kicks here in Portugal. So yeah, absolutely. Stories, the connectioning, I absolutely loved that. And if it wasn't for a connectioner, Gary and I wouldn't know each other. You know, we were told by Marco, weren't we? You need to go speak to this guy. And you told that to both of us, and here we are now doing this. So connectioning is absolutely in our DNA, isn't it? And if we empower it, we end up with the world you're talking about, I think, JL.
And I think also, just with storytelling, we all like the good guys to win. So if your stories show good guys winning, other people go, I could do that. I can do that.
Yes.
So maybe we have the conference, which is only stories.
Yes. Yeah.
All the presenters, all they can do is tell stories. There's no PowerPoints and there's no data. You can have that in a book somewhere else. We can give them that, but you're only going to tell stories.
Yeah.
I love it. That's the most famous TED Talks. It's like the story per explanation ratio.
TED Talks is that, isn't it? Right, we've got less than 10 minutes left, JR. I'd love a really great call to action from you, if that's all right. You know, how can people get involved? Who might get involved? How can we get into this year 1 and 2 part of the journey with you, and call those people who might come and help?
So the easiest way is just to subscribe to Connectioning at connectioning.io.
Right.
You are going to hear about some really exciting things have developed this week. We spoke with June Hawley, who's a network weaver, who's teaches how to weave all these things together through network weaving. Right. This is how big movements are sort of all came and clustered together. And we have someone in our ecosystem getting 200 to 250 people to sign up a day. And now we're coordinating how to get that hub. It's still early. This is a process. You're in development, so you'd be an early adopter jumping on. But through this hub, we are working on a quiz to find out some more about you, or you can find out some more about yourself and what you didn't know. And then it sort of directs you to resources or places to start connectioning. So like there's this guy on TikTok who's committed to starting 10,000 communities within a certain time frame, and he's giving people step-by-step his framework for building local community. And he's just amazing. I'm really excited to partner with him, and so that we can offer people these sort of on-ramps that make it easier, because that is what the big companies do, is they make it easy and they make it accessible for everyone. So we're working on that.
Absolutely. I'm just sending the link to a friend of mine who needs to know about this. Mike Brody of Owlnet. He has a very resonant, connected vision. So it's my pleasure to send that link straight to him. We've only got a few minutes left. Is there anything else, Gary? I think you were going to ask something.
I was just going to say, it feels like that classic phrase, there's close to being a tipping point here.
Yes.
And that 1 to 2 years might just nudge this concept into full-blown global response, because people are hungry for change.
They're done with disconnection and loneliness. And
yes. Well, you made a great point, Jess, about people's first and emotional reaction. I think it's kind of trauma related as well, isn't it? It's to push back. But I think fighting the existing system is an understandable response, and it puts energy that might arguably be better spent in creating a new system rather than fighting the old one, right?
Yeah.
Bucky Fuller said it, and it's never been truer than now.
Me and Bucky,
you fight the old system by making it obsolete, building the new one.
Well said, Bucky. Yeah. He's never far away, is he? Fantastic. Right. Thank you so much, Jess, JL, for being here. Thank you, Gary, for bringing and mentioning that JL Friday might be a fantastic guest with the connectioning idea. Really, really great to talk to you today. Did you want a lot? I think we have and finally, but before we do that, is there anything else that needs to be said by you to anyone who might hear this?
No.
To you, you, Jess. I mean, go to connectioning.io, right, basically, and find out there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for being here, and thank you for doing this work in the world.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all so much. You are such gems. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you.
I'm not sure
you
about
are sending out so many ripples.
Thank you very much for that.
We will let people on several platforms know that this is happening. And I was going to say, if Jess, you and I talk about the people and organizations you've mentioned, and then we can put them in the episode description after the event.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll make sure that happens as well. Great. Okay.
So in other news.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. Bringing it onto the screen now. Stay with us, Jess, if you will, for this. Go on then, Gary.
This is an amazing young woman. And she invented something. Rebecca, her name is. And she saw the homeless people on the street, and particularly in the cold and the wet. So she's invented a backpack with a solar panel on it that heats up an electric blanket. Wow. And she's now getting those made and distributed. And I just thought this, at her age, two things. She's thinking of other people before herself, and she's using her wit and wisdom to come up with a solution. Should be shouted from the rooftops. Yeah. And that's on the BBC. You know, they have a very well hidden section on good news that I occasionally delve into.
Yeah, it might spoil the general run of things. I don't have too much good news on there.
So Rebecca, is her second name Young?
Let me just have a look. She is, this was shared. Thank you to Jonathan Geddes for this, BBC Scotland News, published on the 14th of August. There's definitely Harry Potter vibes going on there. Glasgow Rebecca school Young. Pupil. Yeah, Rebecca Young, 12, when she designed a solar-powered blanket, which engineering firm Thales then turned into reality. Hopefully, its use will be evolved from the street, so it just won't become a like a solution for homelessness. We want some systemic changes to homelessness, don't we? Of course, but in the meantime, what a fabulous idea that she's come up with there. From such a young and wonderful mind.
Her naivety overcame any inconvenience in the way of caring.
Yeah, that's right.
She didn't know that existed. We have to be programmed to feel it's inconvenient. So I think part of connectioning is deprogramming those selfish vibes that we didn't have when we were 12. We learn them somehow later.
Yeah, adulteration, I think they call it. We need to kind of heal. I suppose it's healing as well, isn't it? It's healing work and getting over those wounds, if you like. Jess, fantastic to talk with you. Gary, thank you so much, and everybody who's tuned in. Just put a couple of comments on the screen. Great stuff. That was for you, I think, and the connectioning idea from our friend Mel, who lives in Portugal, who I think resonates with these ideas. Nubianet, thank you for being here. And Hugh as well. Good evening to you as well, Hugh. And look, love this conversation, says Tasha, who's in the United States and listening this afternoon. Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be back next week. We've had our summer holiday now, so we're back next week, and we look forward to. Or is it 2 weeks' time? We're back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks' time.
I beg your pardon. Right, so eager to be back again next week. But see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks again, Jess. Thanks to everybody who watched. Thanks, Gary. Take care. And